It's a Friday morning in October, small town Texas. The leaves are just starting to turn. A young mother is home with her 3-year-old. The kind of morning that feels ordinary in the ways that only the worst days that you didn't know was about to happen ever do. Somewhere across town, a woman is getting dressed. She tells her boyfriend that she's going to the hospital. "Today's the day," she says. "The baby's coming." But she's been saying this for 10 months. She doesn't go to the hospital. And what happens next inside a house on Austin Street in New Boston, Texas, will be described by investigators as one of the worst crime scenes that they have walked into. A 21-year-old woman, her 3-year-old daughter asleep in another room, a scalpel, and a lie so elaborate, so meticulously maintained, that the people who love this woman never saw it coming until it was already too late. Welcome to GBRLIFE Transmissions. I'm your host, Caitlin, and you're listening to GBR Life of Crimes, where we explore not just what happened in crimes committed by women, but why they happened and the psychology behind them. Today, we're going into one of the most disturbing cases that I have covered, although most are pretty disturbing. But this one takes at least the top 5. This is a story of Taylor Parker, a woman who faked pregnancy for 10 months, murdered her pregnant friend, and tried to steal her baby to keep a man who was already walking out the door. But before we talk about what Taylor Parker did on October 9th, 2020, we have to talk about who she was long before that day, because nothing about this crime makes sense if you don't understand where she came from. And where she came from has everything to do with where she ended up. Taylor Renee Parker was born in 1993 in East Texas. She grew up in Mount Pleasant, a small town in Titus County, about 2 hours northeast of Dallas. On the surface, her childhood looked normal. She attended Chapel Hill Elementary. She played basketball. She was in baseball. She did competition cheerleading. Her mother, Shona Pryor, described her as a typical student who made good grades. And again, from the outside, she was just a kid growing up in a small Texas town. But the outside and the inside, those worlds were never the same. And that gap started earlier than most people would realize. In 3rd grade, Taylor started having stomach issues, stomach pains, discomfort, symptoms that her mother took seriously enough to bring to the doctors. The problems lasted the entire school year. Now, were those symptoms real? Possibly. Children carry stress in their bodies, and something was already wrong at home long before anyone gave it a name. What matters psychologically is what Taylor learned from the experience. When her body spoke, people listened. When she was sick, she got attention. When she was suffering, her mom showed up. The lesson burrowed itself deep, and it didn't just stay in the 3rd grade. Her parents' marriage was deteriorating throughout her childhood. The fights happened in front of the kids. The tension was constant. And in 2005, when Taylor was 12, her parents finally split. Her father, Mark Morton, did not handle the separation well. The custody agreement that they tried at first was letting Taylor and her younger brother Zachary stay in the house while the parents alternated weeks. But this collapsed almost immediately because Morton refused to leave during Shona's time, and he would fight, and the children watched. Her brother Zachary would later testify that their father brought him into what he recognized, in hindsight, as a drug house when he was a child. He also testified that Morton used both of his kids as pawns in the divorce and did not always put them first, and yet Taylor gravitated towards her father. When she didn't want to go to her mother's grandmother's house during Shona's weeks, she would go to Mark's instead. She chose again and again the parent who was less stable, less available, less reliable. That was not an accident. That's the beginning of a pattern. When someone is inconsistent with you, when their love feels unpredictable, you don't stop wanting it, you want it more, especially if it's a parent. And you'll spend your whole life trying to earn something that was never reliably given. And Taylor was 12, learning that the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally will use you as leverage. That love is something you perform for. That if you disappear or fall apart, someone will come. That lesson will follow her into every relationship she ever had. By the time Taylor was a teenager, the pattern was already in motion. She was looking for something outside her family that she hadn't found inside it. Stability, being chosen, being stayed for. At 17, she got involved with a 19-year-old named Donald. She moved in with him. onto his family's property in a trailer on their compound, and she got pregnant. She carried that pregnancy. She had that baby, a daughter she named Emerson. And then Donald cheated on her, and she packed up and left. Donald has never seen his daughter. The first man Taylor built her life around, the first person she gave her body to in that way, left. Not just left the relationship, he also left his child entirely. Taylor was a teenager, raising a baby alone, with a father in the picture who used her as a pawn, and a mother she had a complicated relationship with, and the man she had chosen had simply walked away. That's a template. That is a wound that everything else is built on. Every relationship that Taylor has had from that point on was shaped by one central fear: I will be left again. And every single choice that she made afterwards was an attempt to make sure that didn't happen. Then she goes on to meet Tommy, a man who would take her in and take in her daughter as his own, and then he would marry her. Tommy raised Emerson from the time that she was 8 months old. He and his family loved her like she was theirs. And for a period of time, by her brother's account, Taylor and Tommy seemed just very happy and very in love with each other. Their family was the focus. Nothing else mattered. At 21, Taylor gave birth to their son, but the delivery was complicated, and she developed preeclampsia, a serious pregnancy condition involving elevated blood pressure, and it required an induced birth. Because of the complications, her recommended a tubal ligation to prevent future pregnancy. Taylor agreed, and the procedure was done in 2014. Then that tubal ligation failed. 2 years after Trey was born, Taylor had an ectopic pregnancy, a pregnancy where the embryo implants in a fallopian tube instead of the uterus. It's dangerous and non-viable, and because of everything her body had already been through, the pregnancy led to a medically necessary hysterectomy in 2015. She was 22, and her uterus was removed, and she would never carry a child again. Tommy had testified that he saw Taylor devastated by this. And I want to sit in that for a moment because devastated does not fully cover it for a woman like Taylor. This is not just a medical loss. For someone who already built all of her identity around being a mother, around being needed, around having something to offer a man, losing the physical ability to have more children was essentially an identity collapse. It was the closing of a door that she had not finished walking through, and it happened right around the same time that she had weight loss surgery. Her brother Zachary testified that the weight loss surgery in 2014 seemed to mark a turning point. Before, he said Taylor and Tommy seemed devoted to each other, focused on their family. After it, something shifted. Her focus turned outward, away from her family, towards what she wanted and what more she could get. She described it plainly. Instead of her focus being on her family, it was on what she wanted to do with her personal life. Whether the surgery itself caused something, or whether it was the hysterectomy that came right after, or even the grief that she would never be pregnant again, or some combustion of all of it together, the woman who came out of 2014 and 2015 was a completely different person who began those years. And the marriage to Tommy did not survive it because of that. Their divorce was finalized in 2018. After Tommy, Taylor did go on to meet Hunter Parker. She took his name. She did not tell him that she could not carry any children. That's something to think about. She was entering a marriage built on a concealed truth about the most fundamental thing, her ability to be a mother again. She either could not face telling him or she believed she could manage it. The way that she managed everything else, with a story, with a performance, with a version of reality that she controlled. When the question of children came up, Taylor did not come clean either. Instead, she told people that she and Hunter were looking into surrogacy. She reportedly approached 2 friends and offered them $100,000 each to be surrogate mothers for her and Hunter. Both declined. Then the story shifted. Taylor told people that Hunter had cheated on her with the surrogate. Whether that was true or another layer of performance is not entirely clear. What is clear is that by April 2019, Hunter and Taylor had separated. The second marriage was over. 2 marriages, a body she could no longer use to conceive, 2 children she did not have full custody of, a father who had treated her as a pawn, a first love who had abandoned his own child rather than stay, and now a second husband gone. So she was also by this point deep into a pattern of faking illnesses that had started long before the fake pregnancy. As you recall, Third grade. Prosecutors established at trial that Taylor had documented histories of shopping doctors, going from hospital to hospital. When one would not give her the diagnosis she wanted, she claimed strokes. She claimed MS. She learned to move her tongue in her mouth to fake slurred speech, at least when she was in the hospital. Symptoms that would disappear once she was discharged. Her ex-husband Tommy testified that the medical debt from her hospital visits topped $40,000, and at one point began truly damaging his credit. The doctors who treated her found nothing, and the nurses who cared for her also found nothing, but she just kept going back. But, as we know, this is third grade just scaled up. And this is a woman who learned as a child that suffering brings people to you, that symptoms get you seen, and that being sick makes you matter to someone. By the time she was an adult, she had refined that tool into something sophisticated and relentless. A licensed clinical social worker who assessed Taylor during the penalty phase of her trial testified that Taylor suffered trauma across key developmental phases of her childhood, and that her trauma contributed to her actions. The defense also brought up a sexual assault nurse examiner during the penalty phase, suggesting an allegation of sexual assault in Taylor's history, though the full details of this were disputed, and Taylor herself gave inconsistent accounts to different evaluators. What was consistent across every expert, though, was the cluster B personality disorders: borderline, narcissistic, histrionic, and antisocial traits, all present, all intertwined. Borderline personality disorder at its core is defined by an intense and consuming fear of abandonment, a pattern of unstable relationships, a fragile and shifting self-image, and a tendency to go to extreme lengths to prevent being left. When you read that definition and then look at Taylor Parker's life from age 12 forward, you're not reading a diagnosis, you're reading a biography. Every person who left her, every man who chose someone else or simply walked away, every institution that told her no, deepened something that had already been cracked open in childhood. And by the spring of 2019, with her second marriage ending and her body permanently altered, and her life not resembling anything she had imagined for herself, Taylor had run out of things she had always used to hold people close. Then, in July of 2019, she walked into a rodeo and met Wade Griffin. Wade was 27. He was a roofing company supervisor, and he was by all accounts a straightforward man who wanted a family. He and Taylor had met, but they continued their conversation through social media. They began having dinners together, meeting each other's families. He described their relationship as an emotional roller coaster, but he stayed. He was committed to her, and he believed in what they were building. And almost from the beginning, Taylor started lying to him. She told Wade that she was pregnant, but she had no uterus. She could not be pregnant, but she told him, and then she committed to maintaining that fiction for 10 months, building an entire architecture of deception around a pregnancy that was never real. She ordered a fake silicone belly online. She reused sonogram images from her previous pregnancies, images from years earlier, and passed them off as current ultrasounds. She had fake urine tests. She gave Wade a due date, September 22nd, 2020. She told everyone around them that they were having a girl. And in March of 2020, they had a gender reveal party. Wade even brought in a calf with a pink bow around its neck. Taylor posted the photos on Facebook. Her father, Mark, was there. Wade's mother was there, friends, family, all of them celebrating a baby that did not exist. But Wade's mother had doubts because she noticed Taylor wasn't growing the way that most pregnant women do. Wade even asked his mother once whether a tummy tuck could explain it, but no one confronted Taylor. The family consensus, as Shona Pryor later testified, was that you can only carry a lie like that for 9 months. Eventually, it's going to fall apart on its own, and they all waited for it to fall. But Taylor was not planning to let it fall. She was planning to deliver. She also created an elaborate web of additional lies around Wade that went far beyond the pregnancy. She used a VoIP app to text him pretending to be her own father, fabricating a story about a farming accident. She created fake personas that texted Wade with scripted text messages designed to manipulate him. She told him that she was an heir to the Blackburn syrup fortune and attempted to negotiate a $4.7 million land purchase along the Red River to impress him. She had friends call him and read scripts that she had written. She was not just faking a pregnancy. She was building an entire fictional life around herself, an elaborate set piece of a woman she believed Wade wanted her to be. No, needed her to be. Then, on September 16th, 2020, Wade received an anonymous text. It told him that Taylor was not pregnant. His ex-wife had sent it. The due date was 6 days away. Everything Taylor had built was about to collapse. Prosecutors laid out what happened next in precise documented detail. Because Taylor's internet searches changed, she began looking up how to get birth certificates for out-of-hospital births, how to register a newborn without a hospital record. She started visiting OBGYN clinic parking lots and sitting in them for hours. She would run the license plates of pregnant women through an online search and, essentially, in a frenzy. She was looking for a target. She needed a real baby. She needed one before Wade would find out the truth. Prosecutors said it plainly in closing arguments. She was never going to give up on Wade. The obsession with keeping him would not allow her to walk away, not this time. She knew the consequence of not having a baby. She was going to lose him forever. Which leads us to Reagan Simmons Hancock. She was 21 years old. She lived in New Boston, Texas, just like them. And she had a 3-year-old daughter. She was approximately 34 to 35 weeks pregnant with her second child, a girl that she had already named Braxton Sage. That would have been the name. She had a whole life in front of her. Taylor had met Reagan in 2019. Taylor worked as a freelance photographer and had taken Reagan's engagement and wedding photos. They were not close friends. If anything, acquaintances. Reagan knew Taylor, but she had no reason to fear her. And on the morning of October 9th, 2020, Taylor told Wade that she was going to the hospital. Today was the day. The baby was coming. She left, but she did not go to the hospital. She went to Reagan's house on Austin Street in New Boston. Reagan's 3-year-old daughter was home, but she was asleep in the other room. What happened inside that house was described as horrific. Taylor attacked Reagan. She beat her. She stabbed her more than 100 times. She strangled her. She crushed her skull. And then using a scalpel, she cut Reagan from hip to hip, removed her uterus, and took the baby from her body. She was still fighting for her life and her baby when she was killed. The medical examiner found fragments of Reagan's own fingernails in the wound, indicating that she was trying to stop what was being done to her even in her final moments. Reagan's mother, Jessica Brooks, arrived at the house sometime after. The screams that the criminal affidavit records her making repeatedly over and over until police arrived were 3 words. Someone killed my baby. Someone killed my baby. Taylor Parker left Reagan's house with a baby. The umbilical cord was still attached. She drove about 9 miles from the murder scene. A state trooper pulled her over for speeding and erratic driving, and he found Taylor covered in dried blood, holding a newborn in her lap. The umbilical cord appeared to be coming from her clothing, as though she had just given birth in the car. She told the trooper she had delivered the baby on the side of the road. EMS transported Taylor and the baby to a hospital in Oklahoma. Medical staff examined Taylor and found no signs of recent childbirth. None. Her body showed nothing consistent with having delivered a baby. Under questioning, Taylor admitted that she had been in what she called a physical altercation with Reagan, and that she had taken the baby from Reagan's body. So she was arrested on the spot. And baby Braxton Sage Hancock was pronounced dead at the hospital. A fellow inmate Taylor confided in later testified that Taylor told her the baby had been alive in the car when she left Reagan's house. Medical personnel confirmed a heartbeat. Braxton had a documented time of death of October 9th, 2020 at 1:22 p.m. Taylor Parker's trial began in September of 2022 in Bowie County, and it ran for nearly 2 months. More than 130 witnesses testified. The digital evidence alone, including geolocation data, internet search history, social media records, handwriting analysis, was described by multiple expert witnesses as the largest case file they had ever worked. The prosecution built their case in layers. Special Agent Dustin Estes of the Texas Department of Public Safety testified that on the morning of the murder, Taylor had watched a YouTube video on the physical examination of her preterm infant at 35 weeks. which was exactly how far along Reagan was. She had done her research. She was prepared. Witnesses described lie after lie after lie. Former friends testified about false claims that Taylor had made over the years, that she had a sister who had died by suicide, that she was an heir to a syrup fortune, that she had cancer, that she had MS. A neurologist from New York testified for the defense that Taylor's brain was broken. Prosecutors countered that you cannot plan a murder, surveil parking lots for weeks, run license plates, order a scalpel, and watch instructional videos on infant care while your brain is broken. That kind of planning is not a symptom, it's a choice. And the defense tried to humanize her. They pointed to the childhood trauma, the divorces, the medical losses, the fact that people around her knew about the fake pregnancy and said nothing and did nothing. Her attorney asked the jury to consider what might have happened if just one person had confronted Taylor before things reached the point they did. It was not an excuse, it was a question. But that was not enough. And on October 3rd, 2022, the jury deliberated for less than an hour and returned a guilty verdict on capital murder. And on November 9th of 2022, after the penalty phase, the same jury sentenced Taylor to death. She became one of only 7 women on the Texas death row. And as of late 2025, the Texas Court of Appeals upheld her death sentence. Which brings us back to the beginning of all of this. Yes, we know that she's getting her justice, but the fact that she arrived to this point in her life, obviously she did not wake up one morning and decide to kill someone. She arrived at that moment through decades of accumulation, and we know what that accumulation is. And then knowing that she was clinically diagnosed as cluster B personality disorders, the borderline, narcissistic, histrionic, and antisocial traits, all present, especially with borderline personality disorder at its core being about one thing, the terror of being abandoned. This means Taylor did not kill Reagan because she wanted a baby. And the prosecution made that point explicitly. She killed Reagan because she was terrified of losing Wade, and a baby was the only thing that she believed could keep him. The baby was an instrument here. The pregnancy was a performance, and Reagan was simply the person who decided to be available. Well, not decided. She just happened to be there at the wrong time. Accessible, but also far enough along in her pregnancy to make this work. And that's what makes this case different from many others. The violence was not impulsive. It was not a crime of passion here. It was premeditated, researched, and executed with a level of cold deliberatedness that the medical examiner described as overkill, far beyond what was necessary to accomplish the goal. The forensic psychiatrist who examined Taylor for the state said that people who have empathy, who have human element still intact, usually stop once the person is dead. But Taylor didn't stop. She kept going. And then she drove away. The defense attorney's closing words have stayed with me on this one too. He said, as rational people, we want to make sense of the nonsensical. Sometimes we can't, and we want to explain the unexplainable. But sometimes we can't. And he's right. There is no explanation that is clear for what Taylor Parker did to Reagan or to Braxton. There is a history, there's a diagnosis, there's a trail of losses and abandonments and fractures that go back to a little girl in 3rd grade, learning that her body was the best tool she had, but none of that is a real or good reason or excuse, and none of that brings back Reagan or Braxton. If you're wondering, Reagan's 3-year-old daughter was home that day, but she's older now, and she will grow up without a mother, and she will carry that October morning in whatever way children carry the things that happened to them before they have any words for any of it. Reagan's family showed up the day of that trial, and they sat in the courtroom for nearly 2 months, and they watched the evidence and listened to the testimony and made sure the jury knew exactly who Reagan was beyond what had been done to her. That's not a small thing. That is an act of extraordinary love for a woman who did not deserve what happened to her, and a baby who deserved to be alive in a happy, wonderful family. Taylor took that from them. This has been GBRLIFE of Crimes, part of GBRLIFE Transmissions, and I'm your host, Caitlin, reminding you that understanding the darkness helps us appreciate the light. Join me next time as we uncover another case that challenges everything we thought we knew about the criminal mind. Hey, it's Caitlin. If you saved this song, a big thank you. And if you could do me one more favor and like and subscribe every time you listen to GBRLIFE Transmissions, that would mean the world. And it would really help GBRLIFE Transmissions grow. Also, don't forget to check out the reviews and blogs and so much more on GBRLife.com. Can't wait to see you there.
Clock in the corner, slow. Breath between the words we choose. Stories in the spaces we don't fill. Soft edges, let it all unfold. Every small confession, softly told. Hold your heart a little closer now. We're right here. We're right here. Hands around a porcelain cup. Name on your lips you never said out loud. Truth like a sunrise under your ribs, rising easy.